Welcome to Water Level. Today we're looking at the latest updates for the two largest reservoirs in the United States, Lake Mead and Lake Powell. Both of these lakes are central to the Colorado River system, which provides water to millions of people across the Southwest, supports agriculture, and generates hydropower. As of September 2025, both reservoirs remain well below full capacity, reflecting the long-term impacts of drought and heavy demand on this fragile system. Starting first with Lake Mead, the current water level is measured at 1,056.73 feet above sea level. That puts it 172.27 feet below its full pool of 1,229 feet. The latest data shows a small daily change, down 0.03 feet since yesterday. While this may sound like a minor drop, the long-term picture shows the lake hovering close to critically low thresholds. When we compare 2025 levels to past years, the graph tells a very clear story. In 2020, Lake Mead's levels were significantly higher, reaching well above 1,090 feet at times. In 2021 and 2022, the levels dropped steadily, and though there were brief periods of stabilization in 2023 and 2024, the reservoir never recovered to historic highs. Now, in 2025, the lake continues to sit lower than the majority of the last 5 years, showing how persistent this water crisis has become. For context, Lake Mead is the largest reservoir in the United States, formed by the construction of the Hoover Dam on the Colorado River. At full pool, it can store more than 28 million acre-feet of water, but today's storage is far below that. With a current level of just over 1,056 feet, the reservoir is operating at a fraction of its full capacity. This matters because Lake Mead provides water for nearly 25 million people, including major cities like Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Tucson, as well as large agricultural regions in California and Arizona. The lower the lake goes, the greater the challenges for water supply and hydropower generation. One critical milestone for Lake Mead is the 1,050-foot level. Crossing that threshold can trigger deeper water shortage declarations that affect how much water is allocated to different states. Right now, at 1,056 feet, Mead is hovering just above that important mark. But as the chart shows, the trend through late summer and early fall continues downward, making it possible the reservoir could flirt with that line again before next year's snowmelt in the Rockies brings in fresh inflows. Now let's turn to Lake Powell, the second largest reservoir on the Colorado River. As of the most recent reading, Powell's water level is at 3,545.97 feet above sea level, which places it 154.03 feet below its full pool of 3,700 feet. Like Lake Mead, Powell also saw a slight daily decline, dropping 0.04 feet since yesterday. The chart for 2025 shows that Powell had a modest seasonal rise during the spring and early summer, consistent with snowmelt inflows from the Colorado River's upper basin. But since then, levels have flattened and are now gradually declining again as inflows diminish and water is released downstream to meet obligations at Lake Mead and other demand points. Lake Powell, created by the construction of Glen Canyon Dam, is critical for managing the Colorado River's upper and lower basin water deliveries. Its ability to store water helps balance the system during wet and dry years. At full capacity, Powell can hold about 24 million acre-feet of water, but like Mead, it is far from that mark today. With the lake sitting in the mid-3,540s, it is much closer to the minimum power pool of 3,490 feet than to its full pool. That's important because if the reservoir drops too close to that lower level, the ability of Glen Canyon Dam to generate hydroelectric power for millions of customers across the region could be compromised. Comparing Powell's 2025 levels to prior years also shows how serious the decline has been. In 2020, Powell was above 3,600 feet, and even in 2021, it stayed closer to 3,570 for much of the year. The sharp drop in 2022 highlighted just how much the system was struggling, with levels sinking below 3,530 feet at times. Although there was some recovery in 2023 due to better snowpack in the Rockies, Powell has not regained its former strength. The current trajectory, with the lake trending lower once again this late in the season, suggests continued challenges heading into 2026 unless the region experiences an above-average snow year. Taken together, the conditions at Lake Mead and Lake Powell paint a sobering picture of the Colorado River system. These two reservoirs act as the main savings banks for water in the Southwest. When snowpack is strong and inflows are high, they refill. But when drought stretches across multiple years and demands remain high, the banks are drained more quickly than they can be replenished. That's the situation we're seeing now in 2025. Despite some improvements in individual years, the long-term downward trend continues. What's especially concerning is that these reservoirs don't just serve one state or one city. Lake Mead and Lake Powell provide water for nearly 40 million people across 7 U.S. states, including Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. They also fulfill obligations to Mexico under international agreements. On top of that, the water supports agriculture that supplies much of the country with fruits, vegetables, and livestock feed. And beyond human needs, the Colorado River and its reservoirs are crucial for ecosystems and wildlife habitats. As the levels stay low, the challenges ripple outward. Hydropower generation from Hoover Dam and Glen Canyon Dam decreases as water levels drop, reducing the amount of renewable electricity available to the region. Farmers face more restrictions on water deliveries, leading to difficult choices about what crops to plant and how to manage irrigation. Cities are forced to tighten conservation measures, from limiting outdoor water use to investing in efficiency programs. And recreational industries that rely on boating, fishing, and tourism at the lakes are also impacted as shorelines recede and marinas struggle to stay open. Looking forward, the key question is whether upcoming winters will provide enough snowpack in the Rockies to rebuild these reservoirs. In the last several years, the region has seen some variability. A stronger snowpack in 2023, followed by a weaker runoff in 2024 and 2025. Efforts are already underway to address this challenge. The Bureau of Reclamation, working with states and water agencies, has implemented shortage declarations and cutbacks designed to slow the decline of Mead and Powell. These agreements are contentious as they involve tough negotiations about who must reduce water use and by how much. But without them, the reservoirs could slip even closer to deadpool conditions, a scenario where water can no longer flow downstream through the dams. For Lake Mead, deadpool occurs around 895 feet, and for Lake Powell, it's near 3,370 feet. But both lakes are above those levels today, but the fact that they are within just a few hundred feet underscores how fragile the situation has become. So, as of September 2025, Lake Mead sits at 1,056.73 feet, and Lake Powell is at 3,545.97 feet. Both are declining slightly day by day, and both remain far below their historic full pools. These numbers are not just statistics, they represent the reality of water scarcity in the American Southwest. They highlight the urgency of planning, conservation, and adaptation in a region that depends so heavily on the Colorado River. That wraps up today's update on Lake Mead and Lake Powell water levels. These numbers are a reminder of just how critical the Colorado River system is to the Southwest, and how every foot of water truly matters. If you found this update helpful, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest water level reports. Share this video to spread awareness about the challenges facing our reservoirs, and join us next time as we continue tracking the story of water in the West.